29 missed calls. That's how many times my grandfather tried to reach me from LAX airport while my parents drove away, leaving him standing there with nothing but a worn leather suitcase and the clothes on his back. I still remember the exact moment I discovered those calls. My phone had been on silent during the celebration party my parents threw that night, champagne flowing like water through our newly acquired mansion. When I finally checked my phone at 2 in the morning, unable to sleep with the guilt eating away at my insides, I saw his number flashing again and again on my screen. 29 attempts. 29 times he'd reached out, and I hadn't been there to answer. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, from the day everything changed, though I didn't know it yet. The morning started like any other Los Angeles morning, with golden sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of what my parents had just started calling our new home. The Obsidian Palace, as grandfather Elias had named it, sat perched on the Hollywood Hills like a crown, its Art Deco architecture a testament to the golden age of cinema. From the terrace, you could see the entire city sprawling below, from downtown's glittering towers to the Pacific Ocean's endless blue horizon. I'd grown up visiting this house, running through its marble hallways as a child, listening to grandfather's jazz records echo through the grand ballroom, learning about business and life at his knee in the library that smelled of old leather and pipe tobacco. He'd raised me as much as my parents had, maybe more, filling in the gaps they left with their constant traveling and social climbing. My parents, Robert and Cynthia Sterling, had always lived in grandfather's shadow. Dad worked for Grant Industries, grandfather's empire, but never quite rose to the level of respect he craved. Mom, grandfather's only daughter, had married Dad against his wishes, and I think she'd spent every day since trying to prove that decision right. Trying to show that she and Dad deserved a piece of the fortune grandfather had built from nothing. 3 days earlier, they'd done it. They'd finally convinced grandfather to sign papers transferring ownership of the Obsidian Palace and a significant portion of his assets to them. I wasn't privy to the details of those meetings. They'd happened behind closed doors in grandfather's study, with lawyers present, papers rustling, and my parents emerging with triumphant smiles that made my stomach turn. Grandfather had seemed different those last few days, quieter, more contemplative. I'd caught him standing in the gallery one evening, looking at the portrait of grandmother Eleanor, who'd passed 5 years ago. He'd been holding his walking cane, the one with the silver wolf's head handle that grandmother had given him on their 50th anniversary, and I could have sworn I saw tears in his eyes. "Chloe," he'd said when he noticed me watching. "Come here, sweetheart." I'd walked over, and he'd put his arm around my shoulders. We stood there together in the dim light filtering through the stained glass windows, looking at grandmother's painted smile. "Do you remember what I told you the day your grandmother died?" he asked. I nodded. "You said that blood doesn't create loyalty. Choice does." "That's right." He squeezed my shoulder. "Don't ever forget that, Chloe. When the storm comes, and it will come, you'll need to remember those words." At the time, I'd thought he was just being philosophical, still grieving grandmother in his own way. I had no idea he was preparing me for what was about to happen. The morning of the airport trip, I woke to the sound of my mother's shrill voice echoing up the stairs. "Chloe, get dressed. We're leaving in 20 minutes. I threw on jeans and a t-shirt, pulled my long dark hair into a ponytail, and hurried downstairs. The breakfast table was set with grandfather's good china, but the meal was rushed, perfunctory. Dad was already in his suit, checking his Rolex repeatedly. Mom wore too much perfume and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Grandfather sat at the head of the table, eating slowly, deliberately, as if he were savoring every bite of his last meal in this house. He was dressed simply, in slacks and a cardigan sweater, looking more like a retired schoolteacher than a billionaire industrialist. "Ready to start your new adventure, Dad?" Mom asked with fake brightness. Grandfather set down his fork carefully. "As ready as one can be to leave a home they've built over 50 years. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. "You said you wanted something simpler. A fresh start. That's what this is." "Did I say that?" Grandfather's voice was mild, but his gray eyes were sharp as steel. "Or did you decide that's what I wanted?" "Dad, don't start." Mom's voice had an edge now. "We've been through this. You signed the papers. It's done." "Yes," grandfather said softly. "It's done." The drive to LAX took 40 minutes in light traffic. We took Dad's Mercedes, the one he'd bought with his last bonus from Grant Industries. Grandfather sat in the back with me, his hands resting on the wolf head cane, staring out the window at the city passing by. I wanted to say something, to ask him if he was really okay with this, but the words stuck in my throat. My parents filled the silence with chatter about their renovation plans, their voices bright and artificial. "We're thinking of converting your study into a home theater," Dad said. 80-inch screen, surround sound, the works. "And I want to redo the kitchen," Mom added. "Open concept, all white marble, very modern." Grandfather said nothing. His silence was louder than their words. When we reached the airport, Dad pulled up to the departures level and got out quickly, popping the trunk. Grandfather's single leather suitcase sat there, looking small and sad. Everything he was taking with him from a lifetime fit in one bag. Dad grabbed the suitcase and set it roughly on the curb. There you go. Got your ticket? Grandfather patted his jacket pocket. Right here. Mom leaned out her window. Call us when you land, okay? Let us know you're settled. I got out of the car, unable to just sit there and watch this happen. Grandfather, are you sure about this? You don't have to go anywhere. This is your home. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something in his eyes that I couldn't quite read. Sadness, yes, but also something else. Something almost like satisfaction. Chloe, my dear girl. He cupped my cheek with his weathered hand. Remember what I told you. Blood doesn't create loyalty. Choice does. And remember this too. You can't steal from someone who's already given everything away. Before I could ask what he meant, Mom called from the car. Chloe, we need to go. We have the contractor meeting at 2. Grandfather kissed my forehead. Keep your heart clean, sweetheart. You're going to need it. Then he picked up his suitcase and walked toward the terminal doors. I stood there watching him go. This man who'd built an empire, who'd loved his wife devotedly, who'd taught me everything that mattered, reduced to a solitary figure walking into an airport alone. Something felt terribly, terribly wrong. Chloe, Dad's voice was sharp. Get in the car. I climbed back in, and we drove away. I twisted in my seat to look back, and through the crowds, I caught one last glimpse of Grandfather. He'd sat down on one of the benches near the entrance, and he was pulling out his phone. That's when he started calling me, over and over again. While my parents laughed and planned and celebrated in the front seat, while we drove back through the city toward our newly stolen palace, my phone vibrated silently in my pocket, 29 times. By the time we got back to the Obsidian Palace, my parents' celebration was in full swing. They must have planned it in advance, because caterers were already setting up in the ballroom, bartenders were arranging bottles behind the bar, and a jazz quartet was tuning instruments on the small stage where Grandfather used to play his records. Jazz, his music. They were using his music to celebrate taking everything from him. Isn't this perfect? Mom spun around in the entrance hall, her arms spread wide. I've always loved this house, and now it's finally ours. Ours, Dad echoed, wrapping his arm around her waist. We've earned this, Cynthia. All those years of waiting, of playing the dutiful son-in-law, of watching the old man lord it over us. Finally, we're the ones in control. The words made my stomach turn. I started to say something, but Mom cut me off. Chloe, go get dressed. We're having guests. I want you looking presentable, not like some college dropout. I was in my junior year at UCLA, studying social work, but that had never been good enough for them. They wanted me in business school, following in Grandfather's footsteps at Grant Industries. The fact that I wanted to actually help people instead of just making money was a constant source of disappointment. I went upstairs to my room, the one I'd stayed in since childhood whenever I visited. It overlooked the garden where Grandmother had grown roses. Her favorite bench was still there, weathered but sturdy, and I could almost see her sitting there with her sun hat and gardening gloves, smiling up at the house she'd loved. On my pillow, there was an envelope. My hands shook as I picked it up. It was cream-colored paper, expensive, with my name written in Grandfather's distinctive handwriting. Inside was a small USB drive and a note. Chloe. It read, keep your heart clean. When the storm comes, you'll need it. Trust in what you know is right. The truth has a way of revealing itself. All my love, Grandfather Elias. I sat on the bed, turning the USB drive over in my hands. What was on it? And what did he mean, when the storm comes? The storm was already here, wasn't it? He'd lost everything. Or had he? I remembered his words at the airport. You can't steal from someone who's already given everything away. And the look in his eyes. That strange satisfaction. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out and finally saw the 29 missed calls, all from Grandfather's number. My heart dropped into my stomach. Oh God, what if something had happened to him? What if he'd needed help and I hadn't answered? I was about to call him back when a text message came through from an unknown number. Enjoy the house while it's still yours. Attached was a photo of a legal document. I zoomed in, trying to read it, but the resolution wasn't good enough. All I could make out was Grant Family Charitable Trust and what looked like today's date. Before I could process what that meant, my mother's voice shrieked up the stairs again. Chloe, guests are arriving. I shoved the USB drive into my pocket, along with Grandfather's note, and went back downstairs. The house was filling with people, my parents' social circle, people I'd seen at dozens of charity galas and business dinners. They circulated through the rooms with champagne glasses, admiring the art, the architecture, the view. They were vultures, and this was a carcass. I couldn't eat. The caterers had prepared an elaborate spread, the kind of food Grandfather used to love. Oysters and caviar, prime rib, delicate pastries. It all tasted like ash in my mouth. Isn't this wonderful? A woman named Patricia, one of Mom's tennis club friends, cornered me by the buffet. Your parents must be so thrilled. This house is spectacular. It was my grandfather's house, I said coldly. She laughed, missing or ignoring my tone entirely. Was being the key word, dear. I heard he signed it all over. Smart man, getting his affairs in order. At his age, you never know. I wanted to throw my champagne in her face. Instead, I set the glass down carefully and walked away, out through the French doors onto the terrace. The sun was setting over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Somewhere out there, grandfather was alone, or on a plane, or God knows where, and here we were celebrating his loss. I pulled out my phone and called him back. It rang and rang and rang, and finally went to voicemail. Grandfather, it's Chloe. I'm so sorry I missed your calls. Please call me back. Tell me you're okay. Tell me where you are. I need to know you're safe. My voice cracked on the last word. I hung up and stood there, fighting back tears, when I heard my parents' voices drifting out from the study window, which was partially open. Can you believe how easy that was? That was my father's voice, slurred slightly with champagne. The old fool signed everything over without even reading it properly. I told you he would. Mom's laugh was sharp and triumphant. All that talk about family legacy, about responsibility, and in the end, he just rolled over. He's gotten soft in his old age. What do you think he'll do when he realizes the trust fund we promised him doesn't actually exist? My blood ran cold. What's he going to do? Mom's voice was dismissive. He signed the papers. It's all legal. He can't prove we misled him. And even if he tries, by the time it gets through court, he'll be dead. The man's 83, Robert. Time is on our side. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. They'd lied to him. They'd tricked him into signing over everything with promises of a trust fund, of being taken care of, and it was all a lie. Still, Dad said, and I heard the clink of a bottle against glass. I feel a little bad about leaving him at the airport like that. Did you see his face when we drove away? Don't go soft on me now. Mom snapped. He's had his turn. 83 years of having everything his way. Now it's our turn. This is our life, our house, our money. We've earned it. By lying to him? I couldn't help it. The words burst out of me as I stormed into the study. By stealing from him? Both my parents jumped. Dad sloshed champagne down his shirt. Mom's face went from shocked to angry in an instant. How dare you eavesdrop? How dare I? My voice was shaking but loud. How dare you? He's your father. He gave you everything, and you repaid him by lying to him, by stealing his home, by abandoning him at an airport like he's garbage. Watch your tone, young lady. Dad's face was flushed red. This is between your mother and her father. It's complicated. You don't understand the dynamics. I understand that you're thieves, I said. I understand that you lied to an old man and took everything he had. He gave it to us, Mom said coldly. He signed the papers, willingly. If he was too senile to read them properly, that's not our fault. You're disgusting. The words came out quiet, but they hit like bullets. Both of you. Mom's hand cracked across my face before I even saw it coming. The sound of the slap silenced the jazz music, the chatter from the other room. Everything went quiet except for the ringing in my ears. Don't you ever speak to me like that again. Mom hissed. This is my house now, my life, and if you don't like it, you know where the door is. I pressed my hand to my burning cheek and looked at them both. Really looked at them. These people were strangers. I'd grown up trying to win their approval, trying to make them proud, and all along they'd been capable of this. You're right, I said softly. I do know where the door is. I turned and walked out of the study, out of the ballroom full of celebrating vultures, up the stairs to my room. I packed a bag quickly, grabbed my laptop and the USB drive, and left. I didn't say goodbye. I just walked out of the Obsidian Palace and didn't look back. I got in my old Honda Civic, the one I'd bought with money from my summer jobs because my parents said I needed to learn the value of hard work, and I drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove through the Los Angeles night, tears streaming down my face, my phone in the passenger seat, still waiting for grandfather to call back. He didn't. Not that night. I ended up at a cheap motel off the highway, the kind with flickering neon signs and questionable stains on the carpet. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally opened my laptop, plugging in the USB drive with shaking hands. There were files, dozens of them. Video files, audio recordings, scanned documents. I clicked on the first video, and grandfather's face filled the screen. Hello, Chloe, he said, and his voice made me start crying all over again. If you're watching this, then things have gone exactly as I predicted. Your parents have taken what they thought was everything, and they've left me with nothing, or so they believe. He smiled, and it was a smile I'd never seen before. Sharp, calculated, almost predatory. Let me tell you a story about loyalty, my dear. About family and blood and the choices we make. Your parents thought they were clever. They thought they'd found a way to take control of my assets, my property, my legacy. They presented me with papers to sign. papers that would transfer the Obsidian Palace and a controlling share of Grant Industries to them. They told me it was for my own good, that I was getting too old to manage everything, that they'd set up a trust fund to take care of me. His expression hardened. They were lying, of course. I knew that. I've been in business for 60 years, Chloe. I didn't build an empire by being naive, so I signed their papers. I gave them exactly what they wanted. And while they were celebrating, while they were already planning how to spend my money, I did something they never expected. He leaned forward, and his eyes gleamed. I gave it all away, not to them, to a charitable trust, the Grant Family Charitable Trust, established the moment they dropped me off at that airport. Everything. The house, the controlling shares of the company, the bank accounts, the cars, the art collection, all of it now belongs to a charitable foundation that I control as trustee. My hand flew to my mouth. Oh God, oh my God. The papers your parents had me sign were legitimate, grandfather continued. They did transfer ownership out of my name. But what they didn't realize, what they were too greedy to check, is that you can't steal what someone has already given away. The moment those papers went into effect, I executed the trust transfer. It was all perfectly legal, perfectly binding, with 3 witnesses, video documentation, and ironclad legal language, preventing reversal. He sat back, looking satisfied. Your parents now own nothing. They'll find out tomorrow morning, when my lawyer, David Albright, pays them a visit. I wanted you to know beforehand, so you wouldn't be caught off guard. This USB drive contains all the documentation, all the evidence of what they tried to do and what I've done in response. Keep it safe. His expression softened. Chloe, sweetheart, I didn't do this to hurt your parents, though they've certainly earned what's coming to them. I did this to free you. To show you that you don't have to become like them. Blood doesn't create loyalty, remember? Choice does. And I'm giving you a choice now. He pulled out a document and held it up to the camera. This is my will. In it, I've named you as the eventual head of the Grant Family Charitable Trust. When I die, and that won't be too many years from now, you'll have control of everything. The house, the foundation, the company shares, all of it. But only if you choose to accept it. Only if you promise to use it for good, not for greed. To help people, not exploit them. To build up, not tear down. Tears were streaming down my face now, but I was smiling. Think about it carefully, grandfather said. This is a burden as much as a gift. But I believe in you, Chloe. I've always believed in you. You have your grandmother's heart. Keep it clean. The video ended. I sat there in that dingy motel room, and I laughed. I laughed until I cried, until I was hiccuping and gasping for breath. He'd done it. The old man had actually done it. He'd let them think they'd won, and then he'd pulled the rug out from under them so completely, so thoroughly, that they'd never recover. I looked at the other files. There were audio recordings of every meeting, every conversation, where my parents had lied to him. There were copies of the fake trust fund documents they'd shown him, with tracked changes showing where they'd altered the legal language. There were bank statements showing they'd already started spending money they didn't have, running up debts against the house's equity. They'd already started counting chickens that belonged to someone else. I checked my phone. It was past midnight now, almost 24 hours since we'd left grandfather at the airport. Tomorrow morning the bomb would drop. Tomorrow morning their world would end. And somehow I couldn't find it in myself to feel sorry for them. I slept fitfully that night, waking every hour to check my phone. Still no call from grandfather. The worry was eating at me, but I had to trust that he knew what he was doing. He'd planned everything else so carefully. Surely he had somewhere safe to go. Morning came gray and stormy. Los Angeles doesn't get much rain, but when it does, it comes down hard. I could hear thunder rumbling in the distance as I got dressed and checked my phone one more time. There was a text from an unknown number, sent at 7 a.m. Grant Tower, 52nd floor, come alone. My hands shook as I read it. Grant Tower was the downtown headquarters of Grant Industries, the skyscraper grandfather had built 30 years ago. The 52nd floor was his private office, the one he'd kept even after officially retiring. He was there. He was okay. I grabbed my things and drove into downtown through the storm. Rain hammered against my windshield, and lightning split the sky over the city. It felt apocalyptic, biblical, like the heavens themselves were responding to what was about to happen. The underground parking garage was nearly empty this early on a Sunday morning. I took the private elevator that went directly to the 52nd floor, the one that required a special keycard. Mine still worked. Grandfather had given it to me years ago, telling me I always had a place in his office. The doors opened onto a reception area that looked like something out of the 1930s, all dark wood and brass fixtures. Beyond it, floor-to-ceiling windows showed the storm raging over Los Angeles, the city spread out below like a kingdom. Grandfather stood at those windows, his back to me, wearing the same slacks and cardigan from yesterday. When he heard the elevator, he turned, and he was smiling. "Hello, sweetheart." I ran to him, and he caught me in a hug that smelled like Old Spice and pipe tobacco and home. I was so worried. I sobbed into his shoulder. 29 calls. Why didn't you answer when I called back? I needed you to find the USB drive first, he said gently, stroking my hair. I needed you to understand what was happening before we talked. Did you watch the video? I pulled back and nodded. All of it. Grandfather, what you did, it's necessary, he finished. It was necessary, Chloe. Your parents needed to learn a lesson about greed and family. And you needed to see what they were truly capable of, so you'd never doubt your decision to walk away. I left last night, I told him, after I heard them talking, after Mom hit me. His jaw clenched. She hit you? It doesn't matter. And strangely, it didn't. That slap had been the final thread cutting me loose from them. What matters is what happens now. Your lawyer is going to see them today. David should be arriving at the Obsidian Palace right about now, actually. Grandfather checked his watch. Would you like to be there when they find out? I can have a car take us. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to see their faces, wanted to watch their world crumble the way they'd tried to crumble grandfather's. But another part of me, the part that he'd raised to be better, knew that witnessing their humiliation wouldn't make me feel any better. No, I said finally. But I want to be there afterward. When they try to come back. When they try to apologize or manipulate their way out of it. I want to be there for that. Grandfather nodded approvingly. That's my girl, always thinking ahead. He walked over to his desk and pulled out 2 thick folders. These are for you. One is the complete documentation of the Grant Family Charitable Trust. You're listed as my successor. The other is my will. I wanted you to see it, to know what I'm asking of you. I took the folders with shaking hands. Grandfather, I don't know if I can. You can, he said firmly. You're stronger than you know, Chloe. You're the only one in this family who inherited your grandmother's heart. The only one who cares about people more than money. That's why it has to be you. I opened the will and read through it. When I died, everything would go to me. Not just the trust, but his personal effects, his shares in Grant Industries, everything. With it came responsibility for dozens of charitable programs, for thousands of employees, for a legacy that stretched back 60 years. It was overwhelming. It was terrifying. It was everything I'd ever wanted without knowing I wanted it. What about my parents? I asked quietly. They'll receive a stipend, Grandfather said. Enough to live comfortably, but nothing more. It's more than they deserve, but I won't let my daughter starve, no matter what she's done. The rest goes to the foundation, and eventually to you. I looked up at him, this man who'd just orchestrated the most elegant revenge I'd ever witnessed, and I saw not anger but sadness in his eyes. I loved your mother once, he said softly, before your father poisoned her with greed, before she forgot what family means. I keep hoping she'll remember. That's why I'm giving them one more chance. One more chance? He smiled grimly. They'll figure out soon enough that they have nothing. They'll come looking for me, for a way to undo what's been done. And when they do, I'll offer them a choice. They can accept their stipend, accept their loss, and try to rebuild their relationship with their daughter. Or they can fight me in court, drag this through the legal system, and lose everything, including the stipend. They'll fight, I said certainly. You know they will. Perhaps, he agreed, or perhaps losing everything will finally teach them what matters. He was more optimistic than me, but then he'd had 60 years of business dealings with greedy people. Maybe he knew something I didn't. We sat in his office for hours, going through documents, discussing the foundation's current projects, talking about what the future might look like. He showed me reports on scholarship programs, medical clinics in underserved neighborhoods, environmental initiatives, arts education. The Grant Family Charitable Trust was doing real good in the world, and soon I'd be part of that. Around noon, Grandfather's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and smiled. That would be David. Let's see how it went. He put it on speaker. David, tell me. The lawyer's voice came through, dry and professional. Mr. Grant, I've just left the Obsidian Palace. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling have been informed of the trust transfer. They did not take it well. I imagine not. Details? Mrs. Sterling fainted. Mr. Sterling attempted to assault me and was restrained by the police officers I'd brought along as a precaution. They're both currently threatening legal action, claiming fraud, elder abuse, and several other colorful accusations. Grandfather sighed. Expected. Do they have any legal ground to stand on? None whatsoever. The documents are airtight. 3 witnesses, video documentation, and most importantly, you were clearly of sound mind when you signed them. The trust transfer occurred after they took possession via the papers they had you sign, which means they never technically owned anything. They can file suit, but no judge will rule in their favor. Good. Have the papers for the stipend arrangement delivered to them. Make sure they understand that's their only option. Already done, sir. They threw the papers at me. I left them on the foyer floor. I expected nothing less. Thank you, David. Send me your bill. He hung up and looked at me. Well, that's that. Now we wait for the second act. The second act came 2 days later. I'd moved into a small apartment near campus, using money from my savings. Grandfather had offered to put me up in a hotel, but I needed to feel independent, to prove to myself that I could make it on my own. I was studying for a social work exam when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Chloe, thank God. It was my mother's voice, and she sounded wrecked. Chloe, sweetheart, we need to talk. I felt cold. What do you want, Mom? What do I want? She laughed, a brittle, broken sound. I want my daughter. I want my family. This has all been a terrible misunderstanding, and your grandfather has gone crazy, and we need you to help us fix it. Fix what? This trust thing. Her voice rose, taking on a hysterical edge. He's stolen everything from us. After everything we've done for him, all the years we've taken care of him, he's left us with nothing. I almost laughed. You took care of him? Is that what you call lying to him and abandoning him at an airport? Silence on the line. Then, you don't understand how complicated this is. I understand perfectly. I heard you and Dad that night, remember? Laughing about how easy it was to trick him, celebrating that he'd be dead before he could do anything about it. Chloe. You're not sorry you did it, I said flatly. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. I'm your mother, she said, and now she was crying. Doesn't that mean anything to you? We're family, Chloe. Family should stick together. You're right, I agreed. Family should stick together. That's why what you did to Grandfather is so unforgivable. He was family, and you betrayed him for money. We need that money, she shouted. We've already started making payments on the house. We've bought things. We have obligations. Your grandfather is destroying us. You destroyed yourselves, I said. Grandfather just made sure you couldn't destroy him too. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt lighter somehow. Clearer. She called back 17 times that night. Dad called another 23. I blocked both their numbers. 3 days after that, they showed up at my apartment. I opened the door to find them standing in the hallway, and they looked terrible. Mom's hair was unwashed, her makeup smeared. Dad's suit was rumpled, and he had dark circles under his eyes. Chloe, please, Mom started. Just listen to us. I'm listening, I said, not moving from the doorway. Dad stepped forward. This vendetta your grandfather has, it's cruel. We're your parents. We made mistakes, sure, but we don't deserve this. He's taken everything. He didn't take anything, I said. You tried to take from him, and he protected himself. There's a difference. Protected himself? Dad's face reddened. He left us with nothing. We can't even afford rent now. The credit cards are maxed out. The bank is calling about the loans we took against the house. We're going to be homeless. Then I guess you should have thought about that before you lied to an 83-year-old man and stole his house. Mom grabbed my arm. Chloe, please, you have to talk to him. Make him understand. He'll listen to you. I looked down at her hand on my arm, and she must have seen something in my face because she let go quickly. I'm not going to help you, I said clearly. What you did was wrong, and you need to face the consequences. Grandfather has offered you a stipend that would let you live comfortably. Take it and start over. A stipend? Dad spat the word. $20,000 a year? That's nothing. That's an insult. It's more than you deserve, I said, and it's your only option. The alternative is fighting him in court, and you'll lose. You know you'll lose. So take the stipend, downsize your life, and maybe try to become better people. Better people? Mom's voice went shrill. We're your parents. We raised you. We gave you everything. No, I said quietly. Grandfather gave me everything. He taught me about integrity, about kindness, about using wealth to help others instead of just accumulating more. You taught me what not to become. Dad's face twisted with rage. You ungrateful little. Careful, I warned, because unlike Grandfather, I don't have any obligation to offer you anything at all. The stipend is his mercy, not mine. If it were up to me, you'd have nothing. I stepped back into my apartment and closed the door in their faces. I could hear Mom sobbing in the hallway, Dad's angry muttering. I waited until I heard their footsteps retreat, and then I called Grandfather. They came to see me. I told him. I assumed they would. How did it go? I told them to take the stipend and learn to live within their means. He was quiet for a moment. And how do you feel about that? I thought about it. Sad, I admitted, but not guilty. They made their choices. I'm making mine. That's all any of us can do, he said gently. Make our choices and live with the consequences. I'm proud of you, Chloe. Those words meant more than any amount of money ever could. The next 2 months were a whirlwind. My parents did try to fight the trust in court, just as I'd predicted. They hired an expensive lawyer they couldn't afford, filed motions claiming elder abuse and fraud and diminished capacity. It went nowhere. The judge took one look at the video evidence of Grandfather clearly explaining what he was doing and why. The testimonies of 3 witnesses, including a doctor who'd examined him that day, And the timeline showing my parents' deception, and threw the case out. They lost their lawyer, who dropped them when they couldn't pay his retainer. They lost the stipend, which grandfather had made conditional on them not pursuing legal action. They lost what little dignity they had left. I watched it all happen from a distance, through legal updates and the occasional gossip that filtered through grandfather's business network. Part of me wanted to step in, to offer help, but I remembered what grandfather had said. Blood doesn't create loyalty, choice does. They'd made their choices. I was making mine. I spent my time learning everything I could about the Grant Family Charitable Trust. Grandfather brought me to board meetings, introduced me to program directors, showed me the real impact of the foundation's work. I met kids who'd gotten college scholarships, families who'd received medical care they couldn't otherwise afford, communities that had been revitalized through economic development programs. This was what wealth was supposed to do, not sit in a bank account or pay for designer clothes and expensive cars. It was supposed to change lives, to create opportunity, to build something better. I graduated that spring with honors. Grandfather was there in the audience, beaming with pride. My parents weren't. I didn't even know where they were living anymore. After the ceremony, as we walked through the campus, grandfather said, "I have something to tell you." My stomach dropped. "What is it? Are you sick?" No, nothing like that." He patted my hand. "I've decided to step down as trustee of the foundation. Effective immediately, you're taking over." I stopped walking. "Grandfather, I just graduated. I'm 22 years old. I'm not ready." "You're more ready than you know." He turned to face me, his gray eyes serious. "You've spent the last 4 months learning the foundation inside and out. You understand the mission, the values, the importance of the work. And more than that, you have something I never had. Compassion. Real, genuine compassion for people who are struggling. That's what this foundation needs. That's what I need it to have." "But what about you? You're just going to retire?" He smiled. "I'm 83 years old, sweetheart. I've earned a rest. Besides, I'll still be around to advise you. I'm not going anywhere just yet." That just yet scared me more than I wanted to admit. But I nodded. "Okay, I'll do it. I'll run the foundation." "I know you will," he said, "and you'll do it brilliantly." That summer, I moved into a small office at Grant Tower and officially took over as executive director of the Grant Family Charitable Trust. It was terrifying and exhilarating and overwhelming all at once. I had a staff of 12 people, a budget of $30 million a year, and more responsibility than I'd ever imagined having at 22. I loved every minute of it. I expanded the scholarship program, adding support for trade schools and community colleges, not just four-year universities. I started a mental health initiative, providing free counseling in underserved neighborhoods. I pushed for more environmental programs, more arts funding, more support for small businesses in struggling communities. And every week, I had lunch with grandfather in his office on the 52nd floor, and we talked about the foundation, about life, about the future. He was slowing down. I could see it. Moving a little slower, tiring a little faster, but his mind was as sharp as ever, and his pride in what I was building was evident in every word. It was during one of these lunches, about 6 months into my tenure as executive director, that the call came. Grandfather's phone rang, and he glanced at it with a frown. "It's David." "Excuse me, sweetheart," he answered, and I watched his expression change from curious to surprised to something I couldn't quite read. "I see," he said finally. "Yes, send them up." He hung up and looked at me. "Your parents are downstairs. They want to see me." My heart started pounding. "Are you going to let them?" "I think I have to," he said quietly. "One way or another, this needs to end." 10 minutes later, the elevator doors opened and my parents stepped out. I barely recognized them. Mom had lost weight, too much weight, and her clothes hung on her frame. Her hair was gray at the roots, no longer expertly colored. Dad looked even worse. His suit was cheap, ill-fitting, and he'd aged a decade in 6 months. They stopped when they saw me sitting at grandfather's table. "Chloe," Mom whispered, "you look beautiful." I didn't respond. Grandfather stood and gestured to the chairs across from us. "Robert, Cynthia, sit down." They sat, and for a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Dad cleared his throat. "Mr. Grant, we've come to apologize." "Have you?" Grandfather's voice was neutral. "That's interesting. What exactly are you apologizing for?" "For everything," Mom said, and tears started streaming down her face. "For lying to you, for trying to steal from you, for being so consumed by greed that we forgot what family means. For hurting Chloe, for all of it. We've lost everything," Dad added. "The house, the cars, our friends, our reputation. We're living in a one-bedroom apartment in Glendale. I'm working as a sales associate at a car dealership. Cynthia is waitressing. We have nothing." "And that's supposed to make me feel sorry for you?" Grandfather asked. "No," Mom said quickly. "No, we're not asking for your pity. We're just trying to explain that we understand now. We understand what we threw away. Not the money, the family, you, Chloe. We threw away the people who actually mattered, and we can never get that back. I watched them, these broken people who used to be my parents, and I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Satisfaction that they'd faced consequences, sadness for what we'd all lost. And, surprisingly, a tiny seed of hope that maybe, just maybe, they meant what they were saying. "You hurt me," Grandfather said, and his voice cracked. "You're my daughter, Cynthia, my only child, and you looked me in the eye and lied to me. You took advantage of my grief over your mother, my age, my trust in family. You abandoned me at an airport like I was trash. Do you have any idea what that felt like?" Mom was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Daddy. I was wrong. I was so wrong." Grandfather stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet. "I gave you a choice. Take the stipend and start over, or fight me and lose everything. You chose to fight. You chose your greed over your family one more time. Why should I believe anything has changed now?" "Because we have nothing left to be greedy for," Dad said. "Because we've hit bottom, and the only way forward is to try to become better people. We're not asking for money, Mr. Grant. We're asking for a chance to prove we've learned, a chance to maybe someday have a relationship with our daughter again." I stood up then. All three of them looked at me. "I don't trust you," I said bluntly. "I don't know if I'll ever trust you again. What you did was unforgivable." "We know," Mom whispered. "But," I continued, and I saw hope flicker in their eyes, "I'm willing to see if you've really changed, not for your sake, for mine. Because I don't want to spend the rest of my life angry at you." "What does that mean?" Dad asked. "It means we start small," I said. "Coffee once a month. Just talking. Getting to know each other again, if that's even possible. No discussion of money, no asking for favors, no manipulation. Just conversation. And if you mess it up, if you lie or scheme or try to use me, we're done. Forever. Understand?" They both nodded eagerly. Yes, we understand. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you." I looked at Grandfather. He was watching me with an expression of profound pride. "It's your choice," he said. "I'll support whatever you decide." "What about you?" I asked him. "Will you give them another chance?" He looked at my mother for a long moment. "I lost your grandmother 5 years ago," he said quietly. "I don't want to lose my daughter too. But trust isn't given, Cynthia. It's earned. You have a very long way to go." "I understand," Mom said. "I'll do whatever it takes." "Then you can start by living your lives honestly," Grandfather said. "By working hard. By being grateful for what you have instead of always wanting more. By treating people with respect and dignity. By being the kind of parents Chloe deserves." "We will," Dad promised. "We'll try." "Trying isn't enough," Grandfather said sharply. "You'll do it, or you'll lose her forever. And this time, there won't be any money or houses or legal battles to hide behind. It will just be you and your choices and their consequences." The meeting ended shortly after that. My parents left with promises to call me, to set up that first coffee date, to prove they'd changed. I watched them go, and I didn't know what to feel. After they were gone, Grandfather sat back down heavily. He looked exhausted. "Did I do the right thing?" I asked him. "Only time will tell," he said. "But you made a choice from compassion, not from anger or revenge or greed. That's what matters. You chose to give them a chance because it was the right thing to do, not because it was easy or because you thought you owed them. That's growth, Chloe. That's wisdom." "I learned from the best," I said, and he smiled. "That was 18 months ago. Since then, a lot has happened. My parents did change. Slowly, painfully, but genuinely. Those monthly coffee dates became weekly dinners. We talked about their jobs, about my work at the foundation, about everything except money and the past. They were learning to be proud of me for who I was, not what I could give them. They were learning to find value in simple things, in honest work, in earned accomplishments. Last month, Dad got promoted to sales manager. Mom started taking online business courses. They moved to a bigger apartment. They're building a life based on their own efforts, and for the first time, I think they're actually happy. Really happy. Not just comfortable or wealthy or admired. Happy. Grandfather's health declined faster than any of us wanted to admit. 6 months ago, he was diagnosed with heart failure. 3 months ago, he moved into a hospice care facility. He's comfortable, surrounded by his favorite things, visited daily by the people who love him. Yesterday, I sat by his bed and told him about the Foundation's latest project, a new medical clinic in South Central Los Angeles. His eyes were closed, but he was smiling. "You've done well, sweetheart," he whispered. "Better than I ever dreamed." "I had a good teacher," I said, holding his hand. "No," he said, opening his eyes to look at me. "You had a good heart. That was always yours, Chloe. I just helped you see it." This morning, I received the call I'd been dreading. Grandfather had passed peacefully in his sleep, with a nurse holding his hand and Mozart playing softly in the background. I'm sitting in his office now, on the 52nd floor of Grant Tower, looking out at the city he loved. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, just like it was that night of my parents' celebration party. But everything is different now. My parents called earlier, both of them crying. They asked if they could come to the funeral. I said yes, they've earned that much. Tomorrow, I'll read Grandfather's will to the board. I'll officially inherit control of the Grant Family Charitable Trust, of his shares in Grant Industries, of the Obsidian Palace, not because of blood, but because of choice. Because he chose to trust me, and I chose to be worthy of that trust. The Obsidian Palace will become the headquarters for the foundation. Those marble hallways where I ran as a child will echo with the footsteps of social workers and case managers and people who are changing lives. The ballroom where my parents celebrated their theft will host fundraisers for scholarships and medical care and environmental programs. The study where Grandfather planned his elegant revenge will become my office, where I'll continue his legacy. I found a letter in his office safe this morning, with my name on it. In it, he wrote, "Chloe, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. But my work continues through you. Remember what I taught you. Legacy isn't written by wealth. It's written by the choices people remember. Your parents wanted a kingdom, but they forgot who the real king was. Now you're the queen, sweetheart. Rule wisely, rule with compassion, and never forget that blood doesn't create loyalty. Choice does. I chose you, and you chose to be worthy of that choice. I'm so very proud of you. All my love, Grandfather." I trace my fingers over his handwriting, and I smile through my tears. They wanted everything. They schemed and lied and betrayed to get it. And in the end, they lost it all and found something more valuable. A chance at redemption, at becoming better people, at earning back the love they'd thrown away. Grandfather gave them that chance. Not because they deserved it, but because that's what real power is. Not taking revenge, but offering mercy. Not destroying your enemies, but giving them the opportunity to stop being enemies. And me? I inherited more than money or property or control of a foundation. I inherited a lesson about what truly matters. About integrity and compassion, and using whatever advantages you have to build up instead of tear down. My parents left Grandfather at LAX with 29 missed calls and thought they'd won. But sometimes, losing everything is the only way to find what really matters. They lost a kingdom and found themselves. I lost the parents I thought I had and found the person I was meant to become. The sun has set now. The city lights are coming on, millions of them, each one representing a life, a story, a choice. Tomorrow, I'll start making choices that honor Grandfather's legacy. I'll expand the foundation, help more people, create more opportunities. I'll do it not because I have to, but because I want to. Because he taught me that true wealth isn't what you have, it's what you give away. I stand up and walk to the window, pressing my palm against the cool glass. Somewhere out there, my parents are probably sitting in their modest apartment, grieving the loss of the man they betrayed and then learned to love again. Somewhere out there, thousands of people are living better lives because of the foundation Grandfather built and I now run. Somewhere out there, the future is waiting. Blood doesn't create loyalty. Choice does, and I choose to make him proud.